Call to order the meeting of the Annexation Committee for the City of Seaford. We have one new business item tonight. That's to present petition for annexation request from Mr. Michael A. Reed and Mr. Robert F. Reed Jr. for annexing tax map and parcel number 3-3-1-5.15-006.00 and 006.01 located on Ross Street. I'll turn the proceedings over to City Manager Charles Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. And if I could have Ms. Newcomer just advance the slides. Thank you very much. In your packages today, the Annexation Committee has the following documents if you want to follow along. This is the formal request for annexation that the city received. It is from Michael A. Reed of 193 Rifle Range Road in Bridgeville, Delaware, and Robert F. Reed Jr. of 4464 Stein Highway. And they are requesting annexation of the parcel that the two parcels that the chairman mentioned. And they also, on that petition, are requesting the zoning of the property be placed at R3 high density residential. They go on to state that their reason for annexation is city utilities and city policing. So this is an aerial image of the property. It's basically undeveloped. It's just a grass lot of about 3.2 acres and located off of Bridgeville Highway. So that would be on the right-hand side of the page. And then to the north and west, or the left-hand side of the page, would be the Better Homes of Seaford properties that they developed over the last few years. If you go to the next, this is a printout of the Sussex County tax maps that shows the subject parcel that's highlighted in yellow, parcels highlighted in yellow, and then the pink line there is the existing city limits. So the parcels in question are contiguous to the existing city limits. This is actually an enclave of the city. The next map is the city zoning map, and that shows the area around the existing parcel. The existing Better Homes of Seaford parcels are all R3 as well currently. So that zoning would fit in with the existing zoning map. Then we have the comprehensive plan annexation plan. This property is shown there as called out with the leader there in the town center district. So it is, as stated a few seconds ago, it is in an enclave and it is eligible in accordance with our comprehensive plan for annexation. The next, okay. So I'd also like to direct the committee's attention to, we did complete a plan of services. That document is in your package. It was signed by the city engineer and also signed by the mayor, and it was submitted to the Office of State Planning. And in your package, under the petition button, the very last document, is a letter that we received from the director of the Office of State Planning and Coordination, Connie Holland, and it states in part, and I'll read just part of it, this letter is to confirm that we have received and accepted the complete plan of services for the above referenced annexation. The city has completed all relevant annexation requirements of Title 22, Section 101, and subsection 3 of the Delaware Code. So we have submitted the annexation plan of services, and the Office of State Planning has concurred with that and approved it. So those have been completed. Are there any questions at this point about any of the documentation that has been presented to the committee?
I have a question regarding just logistics.
Yes, sir.
Should the committee forward a recommendation to the city council and the city council approves it, would it go before planning and zoning to have it zoned?
Traditionally, we have not done that, although certainly if the council would like to do that, they could ask the Planning and Zoning Commission for input. Typically, what we have done is we've recommended a zoning as part of the annexation process. So at some point, in certain annexations, you have a vote. The residents always want to know what the zoning is going to be prior to annexation. So we could certainly do that if that's the desire of the committee, but we have not done that in the past, recent past.
So maybe I missed it.
Mhm.
Within the draft committee report, it makes okay, so the requested city of Seaford zoning is R3. So that's within our draft,
Yes, sir.
and then that would be something that the city council would act upon.
Yes, sir. And if it moves forward to council with a recommendation to consider and adopt, if council did accept it as written, then yes, sir, that zoning would proceed forward as part of the annexation process.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions on any of the information presented to this point? No. Right, then if it pleases the chairman, we'll move on to the draft committee report. All right, so in your packages, you have a draft committee report. The chairman has touched on it slightly, but I'll kind of hit some of the highlights. The way this is laid out, this committee was appointed by the mayor on January 26, 2021, to investigate the possibility of annexing these lands into the city of Seaford. The petitioner and owner are Michael Reed and Robert Reed. Sussex County tax map and parcel numbers have been discussed, 331 5.15 parcel 6 and parcel 6.01. There has not been an address assigned to these parcels because there have yet to be any structures on them that required that addressing. Total acreage of the parcels combined is 3.201. The draft report does talk about the reasons for annexation, and that is city utilities and city policing. Also, Better Homes of Seaford is the contract purchaser here, and they want to develop the property into an affordable elderly rental apartment complex. The report talks about streets and roadways, and the property identified for annexation is located adjacent to Ross Street, which is an undeveloped paper street, and it is currently vacant land. So should this develop, the Department of Transportation must review and approve any or new revised entrances onto roadways listed above. You know, there are state-maintained roads out there. The city has none that we maintain currently. They're either private lands or state-maintained roads. So they would need to, if they're going to develop the land, they would need to talk to DelDOT and follow any requirements that they have. Stormwater drainage is similar. The city does not have a stormwater drainage system in the area near these lands. Any stormwater management system to serve the lands will have to be designed by the developer and approved by the Sussex Conservation District Office. And with all projects, the regulations require the site to discharge the same quantity of stormwater post-development as the property discharges pre-development. And whatever their regulations are that are current would apply to the project if it developed. Just to discuss zoning, the current zoning in Sussex County of both parcels is AR1, Agricultural Residential 1, and then the requested zoning, as stated by the chairman, is R3, High Density Residential District. And just a note here, the City of Seaford Council may have to zone the lands through the municipal code following annexation, pending any legal advice. Electricity, currently, because it's undeveloped, there's no electrical service as the property is vacant. Upon annexation, the city will amend its service territory agreement with Delmarva Power through the Public Service Commission to include these lands, and any development after the amendment of that agreement would be serviced by the City of Seaford. And we plan for effective growth by working out phasing plans with developer that accommodate development in the most cost-effective manner possible, and all electrical designs will be completed at the cost of the developer in accordance with our rules and regulations. The sewer, we currently have a gravity sewer main near the subject property that services the development to the north and west of the subject lands, existing Better Homes of Seaford lands. And our sewer system is the only publicly owned system in the area, and once annexed, these lands would be eligible to tie to this system. The extension of the sewer mains and constructions of lift stations, if required, are considered part of the project development cost, and the owner should give careful review and consideration for sewer connections. Connections of any new buildings located on the site and available capacity at the wastewater treatment plant, And the capacity currently is about 2 million gallons, and our daily flows are approximately 1.1 million gallons. So this project would work with the building official and the Director of Public Works as they move forward in their development process, should they do that. There also will be fees charged for that, which will be calculated by the building official. Water, the city of Seaford has an existing water main near the subject property. It's a 10-inch water main in Bridgeville Highway along the right-of-way on the same side as the site. Also, water mains exist to the west and north of the subject property, serving Better Homes of Seaford housing complex. The city's water supply is sufficient to support development. However, the necessary distribution system extension to include mains, water tap serving the facility would have to be provided by the developer. Planning the service connections would have to be performed by the owner of the lands and approved by the city prior to connection, and the owner would be expected to pay all associated construction and connection fees. Regarding easements, should this property develop, the owner will need to provide the city the necessary easements prior to acceptance of any streets, water mains, sewer mains, electrical installations, if any of those are applicable. They'll have to include a survey sealed by a licensed surveyor, written legal descriptions of the land being given, and the easement documents must stipulate that no permanent structures can be built within the easement area. Property tax, the lands will be assessed based on the city's assessment following the annexation. The assessment would be based on the value of the lands and improvements per the city zoning. The current designated land use by Sussex County Tax Assessment Office is agricultural residential, AR1. We cannot calculate the real estate taxes at this time until city assessment occurs. The city hires a professional assessor to determine the value of the lands, and the current real estate property tax rate is 34 cents per $100 of the 100% assessment based on a 2019 market value. There is an exemption for nonprofit entities, and a final review and approval must be granted by the tax assessor of the city of Seaford. The comprehensive plan, we've shown a couple maps as part of the package, but the annexation plan designates the property in the town center district as stated. The land use plan identifies the area that the subject property is located in as residential. The requested zoning of R3 per city zoning regulations would be consistent with the objectives of that plan. And copies of the maps will be attached to the report. Just to talk about some advantages to the city, and these are not listed in any order of priority. The city may benefit from additional increased tax base. There's an opportunity to provide utility services, water, sewer, and electric, to the parcel and spread the cost of service over a larger user base. It will allow the city to be positioned to serve additional lands adjacent but not in the city by extension of utilities to this property. Local control of the development at the local municipal level by having authority over it, being able to implement the municipal codes and maintain the property based on complaints received. The area would be served by the municipal police force, which will reduce owner confusion and minimize dispatcher time. Currently, the area is served by the state police, which sometimes can be confusing because they have a Seaford address, but they're not in our city limits as it's an enclave. The governing body that would be most impacted by the land use decisions will be making those decisions, and this is in keeping with livable Delaware to minimize sprawl. Disadvantages to the city, again in no particular order. With continued growth, the city will have to expand personnel to provide all of the expected services. The expansion may increase the operating and capital budgets. In addition, it will increase the area for city departments to serve. Traffic may increase on roads in the event that redevelopment of the property occurs. If the property redevelops, accidents could increase without improvements to the adjoining roads and intersections. We recommend a traffic plan should be prepared if the development is planned. There will be an added number of requests to the city for reviews of plans, service extensions, code, and police services. Advantages to the area proposed for annexation. This is not an all-inclusive list of all the advantages, but represent a sample of some of the advantages to the area proposed for annexation. The area will receive utility service from one owner, so coordination of services will be less complicated. They will provide local police protection with anticipated shorter response time. All coordination of permits will be through the city. Support will be provided in obtaining other agency permits. Checklists will be provided for development. The local government will do the zoning of the lands. Snow removal on all city-owned public streets, leaf and limb pickup at the curb, and maintenance such as paving, pavement markings, etc. on city streets will be provided by the city. All complaints will be made to the city. The property owner will receive local representation for concerns through the elected officials who have to live in the community. They will benefit from municipal water, sewer services once extended by the owner. Advantages to the area proposed for annexation, disadvantages to the area proposed for annexation. They will have to adhere to local codes and ordinances in building and maintaining facilities, which will be perceived as additional paperwork and more restrictive. They will have only one vendor for utilities, water, sewer, and electric. It will be the city. They will have to adhere to more restrictive codes and placement of outside storage and appearance of the property. This draft report is written with the following recommendation. The committee members unanimously agree to proceed with the proposed annexation process for this property. The committee members further recommend that the property be zoned R3 high-density residential in accordance with the city's zoning ordinance upon annexation. Public hearing, there's one section in here about that, will be held to fully explain what area is being proposed to be annexed into the city of Seaford. As part of the State of Delaware's Land Use Planning Act, the plan of services information will be submitted to the State of Delaware Planning Office for all state agencies to review and submit comments. That's been done, and we do have the response. There is a disclaimer, as with all annexation reports, that this annexation committee reviews solely the annexation of lands into the territorial limits of the city of Seaford. They do not review projects for any endorsement as part of the annexation process. Any projects that may be presented for the land once they are annexed into the city of Seaford will follow the normal process for development, including planning and zoning and city council public hearings to allow the public the opportunity to comment on the project proposal. And it would be executed by Councilman Dan Henderson, Chairman, Councilman Orlando Holland, and Councilman Jose Santos. And if there are any, I know that's a lot, I apologize for laboring to read through all that, but if there are any questions related to that, we can certainly try to answer any of that or give additional explanation. Yes, sir.
The road leading that Nylon Avenue, that's not part of the city, right? That's not a city road.
It is not, no, sir.
Will it become one? Or not now?
I don't believe it will, because the way this is laid out, there are 4 or 5 houses that front onto Nylon, and those people do not desire to annex. Okay. So that's not, yeah, there you go. Thank you, Tricia. Those houses that are along the bottom of the page there, now let me say this, Councilman, should they desire to annex, they become eligible because they're contiguous.
Right.
And if they do desire to do that, they could annex, and over time, if we annex all of those, we could look at adopting that road, but that's not subject of this annexation.
All right. I didn't know because of the increase in traffic, whether they would become part of it.
Yeah, I will say that as they developed one of the phases of Better Homes of Seaford, I think it was Williamsburg Manor, but I might be wrong on that. They actually worked with one of the state legislators, I believe it was Tina Fallon at the time, and they actually overlaid Nylon Avenue 10 or 15 years ago. It might even been longer now. So it's in much better shape than it was.
Okay.
But yeah, as traffic increases over there, pavement maintenance is going to be an issue for the state.
Any other questions?
Yeah. What is the current zoning for the Better Homes housing complex there? Is that R3?
It is, yes, sir.
That's my only question for right now.
Any other questions? Thank you, Charles.
Yes, sir.
If there's no further discussion on the draft committee report or any other subjects of tonight's meeting, I will accept the motion.
Um,
Councilman Santos.
I'm in favor of, you know, City of Seaford annexing this property, but I would prefer to defer the zoning to planning and zoning. I'm not sure if that's something that you guys would agree, but
The, let's see.
just in case they have anything to say.
Now, Charles, would you like to clarify? There was some there was some documentation in the committee report or somewhere that there may be, it's subject to legal advice?
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about that if you don't mind. So what the statement here is, the City of Seaford Council may have to zone the land through the city's municipal code following annexation pending legal advice. So one of the things I'll say is planning and zoning is a body that recommends to the city council. Planning and zoning does not approve any project, does not approve any zoning. They review the projects or any kind of zoning, or in some instances, when we do comprehensive plan updates, they'll review the content of that, and they'll make a recommendation to council. Really, the only body in the city that can determine zoning is the city council. That's the vote that's legal. So that's the first thing. Certainly, if you want input on this, we can certainly get that. That's not the issue. What I will say, Trish, would you mind going back to the annexation plan? Sorry, went too fast. Okay, so let's do the annexation plan first. That's the annexation plan, and what happened when we did our comprehensive plan and when we do updated maps from time to time, and I think the last one we did was 2018. We'll do them as we go. We identified that entire area in yellow, all shades of yellow, as our growth zone and where we were going to annex. That came through planning and zoning and was approved by city council. So that meets the requirement there. So in essence, planning and zoning has recommended and council has blessed that that's where we will grow. If you go to the zoning map, kind of this, well, let me go back a little bit. The zoning map kind of follows because that's what happens. Go back to the, if you don't mind. What all those things on kind of the left-hand side of the page there, those colors show, and there's designations on that map as to what those zoning should be. And the zoning on that was blessed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and approved by City Council as residential. Now, whether it's R1, R2, or R3, they don't dive into it that far. That's when we go to the city zoning map. And what we try to do is we try to avoid spot zoning, because spot zoning can become illegal. If you, let's use an extreme example. If over where Dan lives, Willie Street, it's all R1 all around it for several streets. Large area is all single-family residential. We would not, it would be illegal, I believe, for us to come in and say, we want to make my house, which is a street over, zoned R1, commercial or industrial. That's called spot zoning. So as much, to the extent that you can, you want zones to spread and have defined boundaries, so when people buy there, they know what the zoning is, what the permitted uses are. So this is that if there is a questionable zoning issue that is on the fringe of some of this, or we don't have any guidance provided in our guiding documents, the comprehensive plan, our zoning ordinance, then we would get legal advice. That's how I interpret that. Does that make sense, Chairman?
Yes.
So certainly we can go back and get some advice from planning and zoning, but I think planning and zoning has really put that advice in front of us as far as our guiding documents. But if this is controversial or there's some concerns that the annexation committee has, certainly we can run that through that planning and zoning process. They meet every month, and it's if they concur that it should be R3, we can bring it back to another annexation committee meeting and move it forward.
Yeah. As of right now, I don't see any problem with it. I just didn't want to skip over them. Maybe that was just my concern. I don't know how you guys feel about this.
I'm sensitive to the fact that you want to include them, but they've already made decisions previously, and I think if it's a concern that the city council would act on that, we're going to make a recommendation whether it's appropriate to annex this property. And really, we can't make a judgment as to whether it's appropriate to zone it a certain zoning or defer to another body. Our job is to defer to the council.
Okay.
So if, as a councilman at the meeting, I mean, should we all approve this tonight, the appropriate thing to do would be to bring it up at the council meeting, to either defer it to the Planning and Zoning Committee for advice, or act, with the power that they have. So,
Okay. I understand.
does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes sense, and I'm okay with that.
So on, my request for a motion would stand.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make that motion. I make a motion to recommend approval of the Annexation Committee report for the property owned by Mr. Michael A. Reed and Mr. Robert F. Reed, Jr., Sussex County Tax Map and Parcel 3-3-5.15-006.00 and 006.01 located on Ross Street, and to submit report to City Council for their consideration and acceptance as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Holland. I'll hear a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second from Councilman Santos. Thank you. Is there any discussion, any further discussion on the motion? Then I will take the roll. Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson votes aye. So we have a unanimous decision. We have no old business, and I'll receive a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilman Holland,
I second that motion.
Councilman Santos and Councilman Holland seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
The yeas have it. Thank you, and be safe on your way.
Thank you.